Hello, everyone. First, a very good morning. This is Himanshu, and I'm so sorry. It looks really good कि आज Saturday morning weekend पे 11:30 बजे so many of you have joined, and we are today going to talk about dividend income. And of course, इसमें काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें हैं. We have a very special guest for all of you. We have okay about the guest. We'll come to it, but before that, all of you who are watching right now, can you show with some sort of gesture or some reaction on YouTube if you can hear me? I can see. Okay, thank you so much for the response. It's good you can hear me. So today we're going to talk about dividend income. Up, I have been investing and trading for about 3 years. एक्चुअली मोर देन दैट 3 years बट 3 साल से बहुत कॉन्शियसली उससे पहले तो चल ही रहा था बट डिविडेंड हैज बीन वन ऑफ माई फेवरेट टॉपिक्स बिकॉज डिविडेंड इज लाइक money is working for you. You don't have to do anything. You just lie down, just take one right decision, invest in one right company. Well, not one, it has to be a combination. We'll get into the specifics. We have an expert who will take us through that. But the point being कि आप एक बार एक सही डिसीजन ले लो फिर इसके बाद let money do the job. You don't have to do a lot. And that's what I love about dividend income. So today we're going to talk about, of course, the broader theme is how to deal with dividends, how to invest, how to find out the best dividend giving return giving stocks and other things. But एक आपके लिए जो टेक अवे रहेगा as we said we'll be talking about how to create a 1 lakh rupee dividend portfolio. I'm sure a lot of you here want to know about it and we'll talk about it, and I'm so happy. Okay, more and more people are joining. It's really good. चलिए, I'll not take a lot of your time. I'm sure मेरा फेस को इतना अच्छा है नहीं कि आप इतना स्क्रीन पे देखना चाहोगे, but with that I'll introduce our guest. So as you already know, our guest is Miss Sneha, who is CEO of Wealthtrust Capital. Now I'll present her on the screen and I want all of you to give her a very warm welcome. Sneha ma'am, you're live.
Hi Himanshu. Hi everyone here present. It's lovely to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the workshop. And yeah, let's get started with figuring out how to make 1 lakh in a dividend through a dividend portfolio, and how can you make your money work for you.
Yes.
Thank
Ma'am,
you.
I'm pretty sure you have an elaborate presentation prepared for you, but
Yes.
prepared for our viewers. But as we know, काफी सारे लोग ऐसे हैं जो शायद पहली बार ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं. आई एम अज्यूमिंग कि कुछ लोग ऐसे हो सकते हैं जिन्होंने शायद आज से पहले कभी इन्वेस्ट नहीं किया, या हो सकता है कि उन्होंने डीमैट अकाउंट खोला हो बट कुछ नहीं किया. फॉर देम इफ यू कैन टेल अस इन ब्रीफ कि व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज डिविडेंड, क्योंकि मुझे सुबह से 2-3 लोग तो मेरे से पूछ ही चुके हैं जब से हमने ये वेबिनार अनाउंस किया था कि यार डिविडेंड है क्या. सो आई हैव ट्राइड एक्सप्लेनिंग, बट इफ यू कैन टेल अस, इफ यू कैन वॉक अस थ्रू अबाउट व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज डिविडेंड.
Sure. So, we'll just into very basics. Okay, dividend hota kya hai? As Imanshu said, right? For some people who don't even know what investing means or what dividend means. So, बहुत ही simple language में dividend is basically समझो आपने एक business में 10 rupees डाला है, ठीक है? और वो business ने वो पैसे को deploy किया है अपना business grow करने के लिए. एक साल के बाद जो वो कंपनी का प्रॉफिट है, whatever is the profit of that company, it decides not to deploy again in growth, but partly वो जो प्रॉफिट है उसे वो अपने शेयर होल्डर, बिकॉज आपने वो स्टॉक का एक वो कंपनी का एक शेयर खरीदा है, यू आर बिकमिंग अ इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर ऑफ दैट कंपनी, यू आर बिकमिंग काइंड ऑफ एन ओनर ऑफ द कंपनी. तो कंपनी, what is it doing? Not deploying all the profit that it made back into its growth. It's rather paying you a dividend to be a shareholder. So basically, it is a way to kind of, compensate you for the investment that you made in the company through a profit. So basically, dividend is giving you some part of the growth of the last year of the company. Understood? I hope so.
Yes, ma'am. I think this makes it very clear, and I think this is very different in understanding for all of us. I think ये काफी अलग है. This is not just about the increment that you will get on your stock, in the increase of its value, or whatever changes happens with it. You also get a part in the profits of it. Let's say, I mean, it's like companies being generous enough कि तुमने हम पे trust करके पैसा दे दिया, चलो एक gift है तुम्हारे लिए. So I think dividends are nothing less than but a gift for us. Uh,
Absolutely. And as Himanshu also put it initially, it is something where you are kind of passively making, you know, income every quarter, every year out of what you invested. So it is meant for people who want to see money coming in also and not all being used for growth. That is capital appreciation. You don't want only your stock to keep growing in price, but you want to reap some benefits, quarterly or annually, and that's why you're kind of looking at a dividend portfolio. So, Himanshu, I'll get into my presentation now, since we've covered
yes,
the
ma'am.
basics. So
And there
yes,
are people, ma'am, there are people on live who have already started posting their questions. So once in a
yes,
while, I'll try not to do a lot, but little bit बीच बीच में मैं आपको थोड़ा सा interrupt करूंगा with those questions, which we feel are important at that stage, तो ताकि हम उनको साथ साथ लेके चलें.
absolutely. So please
Yeah.
keep pouring in your questions, and we will answer as many as we can. Himanshu, is my slideshow visible?
Yes, ma'am, we can see it. Dividend investing in a nutshell. Yes.
So yes, let's get started with how to make passive income while investing in equity, and not only wait for investments to grow in the longer term. So what are dividends? As I clearly said right now, it's basically profit जो company का रहता है, so that they are giving out. Usually dividends are paid on a quarterly basis, usually by most companies, or it could be annually. So usually it is quarterly, where they, as per the company's earnings, they apportion a part into dividends and then pay it out to the shareholders of the company. बट इसमें ये ध्यान रखना है कि when the company declares a record date, so the dividends are paid on as per the company's database. Whoever is the shareholder of the company on X record date will be part of the dividend distribution. So that is something you have to be aware of, that dividends will only be distributed to shareholders who are part of the company or who own a share of the company before the record date, X record date. So, why is it that some companies pay dividends and why is it that many companies don't pay dividend? So, how will you evaluate from a company standpoint कि कौन सी कंपनी में डिविडेंड पे होने वाला है और कौन सी एक्चुअली डिविडेंड पे नहीं करेगी? So, there is a specific genre of companies or specific kind of companies who usually pay dividends. From a capitalization perspective, it's usually the large cap companies who are, quite big in nature, and they are already stable. Okay, so what mostly these companies could be either PSU, so where the government holdings in these companies is fairly large. So PSU banks or any PSU, like in infra, in mining or in FMCG, etc., where the companies have government holding. Those kind of stable companies do pay dividends for sure. And there could be stable companies could be companies into power, telecom. These companies are consumer led companies, right? इनका जो प्रोडक्ट है वो cyclical नहीं होता है, right? So those are also stable companies where they don't need to deploy more and more money for growth as such, because they are companies who keep growing consistently because of the nature of the product that they are offering. FMCG is not something which is cyclical in nature. You need food, you need things which are daily usage, and that's why such companies grow a certain percentage every year, and that's why they're able to give out dividends. Similarly, for PSU companies and power-led companies, which are the companies who don't pay dividend? Any growth related companies, right, where there will be need to put this money that they get, right, as profit, or as the investments, the new shareholders that come in and the profits that they make in, they will usually deploy it for further growth, where they feel if they deploy an X amount and then they can become a much larger company. That's where dividends are usually not paid out. So any growth led company, which is probably healthcare, chemicals, green energy, could be some private banks who may or may not want to give dividends. And these companies are usually private in nature, okay, the growth led companies. So that is how you can differentiate between what companies, when you're selecting a company, what stock will pay you dividends and what stocks would probably not pay dividends. There are also some loss making companies. So when I said, right, initially it's usually the profits that they pay out of. Why do these loss making companies pay dividends? So it could be that they have accumulated profits over the years. Though they are loss making, they will pay out dividends to consistently kind of showcase their performance to the investors. There could be tax considerations, and because shareholders would have put money in that stock for receiving dividends, so there could be a strategy around these companies where they do not want to have negative investor reaction, and that's why they are paying dividends even though they are loss making for a couple of years. So it could be from accumulated profits of previous years. Now let's look at a few companies as examples who have paid dividends. So these are mostly PSU companies like SAIL or PFC, who have paid out dividends consistently, and how they've done, and how you calculate your dividend yield also. So this is an example of that. So let's look at SAIL, which is Steel Authority of India. So if you look at it, it's 5 year performance. Okay, the dividend returns have been in the range of 3.5%. So
Ma'am,
yeah,
sorry, I'm sorry to cut you off
never
here.
mind.
Yeah. Okay, the slide wasn't visible. Okay, now we can see it. There's somebody who commented they were not able to see the slides. But okay, we are
Okay,
back. Yes.
is the slide visible? Maybe when I do a slideshow. So tell me something. Was this visible? Why companies are making losses when I was presenting it?
Yes, this was visible. Yes.
Okay. Now is it visible, Imanshu?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
How have dividend
Please do
companies?
interrupt when it's not visible. Thank you.
Yes. Ma'am, before that,
Yeah.
based on what we were discussing, there are some questions which have come up.
Okay.
Uh, I think we have already covered, but there are so Miss Archana Jha. Okay, she has her question is, ma'am, you said companies which are cyclical in nature don't offer dividends. What is cyclical? And there's another question: why do mostly government companies pay dividends?
Okay, so that government companies piece, I'm going to come on it in a bit. It is something that I will explain in my slides a, a little later. But in terms of cyclical, so cyclical is companies whose let's say monsoon related, okay, like umbrellas. It's a cyclical, it's a very easy way to explain cyclical, right? Because it's something that you will buy umbrellas only in the monsoon season, right? So there are so many companies who are cyclical driven, right? Who have a cycle where their products are over in demand, and then there is a cycle when their products are not so much in demand. So what I mean by cyclical companies is companies who have a cycle of very high demand, and companies where there is a cycle of very less demand, and that happens with some extreme cyclical companies, and they usually do not pay dividends. Himanshu, can I move on?
Yes, ma'am. I think I think the
So
question is
Himanshu,
answered.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
but
is.
in case they comment again, I will not
Please
hesitate in
do.
interrupting you again.
Please do. Okay,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I'll come back. I'll
Okay,
come to
thank
the
you.
government piece in a bit. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so just to see, what does the 5-year performance look like for various dividend yielding companies. So, if you can see here, there is SAIL, which is the Steel Authority of India. If you go to see, their dividends have been very, very consistent in terms of, giving out dividends. But from a price appreciation, it has not done really, really well. Sale as a company. Okay, now how do you figure how to calculate the dividend yield? It's basically the dividend yield is basically the yield is equal to the annual dividend that the company is paying out, divide by the current price of the company in 200. That's how you kind of figure what is the yield of the dividend. From here, we can figure out that the return was about 18%. So they were, giving about 3-4% of yield plus a return of capital appreciation of 28. So the company kind of did a 8 7 8% kind of a growth year on year, which is not something which is tremendous. But if you go to see a PFC, right, where the dividend return was also very good, where the company gave a 10% or dividend return per year, plus there is a phenomenal price appreciation as well. So when you are researching companies to pay dividends, these are some things that you can see. Of course, past performance has nothing to do with future performance, but when you evaluate companies, you have to figure the dividend yield or how consistently they are paying dividend and what is the capital appreciation, because both are a effect of your performance as well. I hope you can see my slide, Himanshu. I have moved to the next slide. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see this now.
Okay, great. So how have dividend companies performed, right? So when I put it down in, in this format, now I'm showing it to you in this, that the 100 in terms of price, right? 100 has gone to, for example, ITC, 100 has gone to 165. So investors on an average have, taken out 66% return across. So if there was a portfolio, right, usually you will not go only for one dividend paying stock, right? It's a very risky thing to do. You will make a portfolio of 4 5 good dividend paying stocks, and that stock, if you had made a portfolio into these 4 5 companies, it's an example, then your average return would have been about 66% in a 3 to 5 year period, and that's something we are showing here. But a 5 year period is maybe a very short period for passive income and growth. So, what about a 10-year period? So investors have averaged a good 500%. So, if you really stick to good companies, right? Good companies, if you've evaluated and stick to it for a longish period, you're going to see phenomenal growth plus dividend, and your capital appreciation plus growth has looked phenomenal here with a 500% kind of a ROI. If we look at these 3 4 companies, PFC has done phenomenally well. So if we adjust a bit for it, and maybe didn't form part of your portfolio, and yet you had the other 3 companies, the average would have looked so good. So if you stick to these companies, because these are companies don't which kind of give consistent, maybe it will not appreciate a lot in terms of capital appreciation, because they are not growth led companies. The idea is to not plow back all the profits back to growth, and that's why you will see these as consistent performing companies rather than growth oriented companies. Now, a very important point in dividend stocks, right? Who goes for dividend stocks? So it could be either people who are looking for passive income, or someone who is in their 60s who's looking for retirement income also. Someone who wants consistent flow of cash flows, or someone who likes consistent flow of cash flows through their passive income formation. what will happen in a bad market in a dividend company. So this is a great way to explain that, from a drawdown perspective, right? So if your market, if you had invested in the broader market instead of companies which pay out dividend or which are more stable in nature and are not growth oriented, when there is a correction in the market, right? And if you see this very highlighted correction here in 2020, when the market, everybody remembers how the market fell, right? And if we are looking at a market fall of 28%, your dividend yield companies would have only fallen 23%, and they would have corrected also much before the growth companies in the Nifty 50. So here we are explaining, so even if in a 1.5 year period, if you go to see, the dividend has corrected much quicker, and it's become positive in a shorter period. However, Nifty has remained a negative 12%. So what is it that we are showing here, right? When the market sentiment is not good, what will happen? A lot of money that is in the growth stocks will get diverted to such stable companies, because when the market sentiment is not good, you want to go to more stable company where you are more sure of growth with dividend versus in very, very high risk growth companies. And that's what we can see even with this chart, where look at the volatility that a dividend stock portfolio will give you versus a broad market index would give you. The volatility will be way higher for a broad index market portfolio. Now, how do you spot these dividends? Himanshu, do you want me to take up any questions before I move on?
Yes, ma'am. There are questions, but I think we missed on the last slide where you were showing the different graphs. If we can go back to that, there are people commenting they missed it.
Okay, I'll show it
Can
again.
can
This
can you
was
go
the
through it
one
again?
that,
Is it possible?
yes, sure, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
So this is the one that I was talking about, the volatility in terms of, the Nifty, the broad market index versus a dividend portfolio that you would have created. Because these are stable companies, these are, companies who have, are more large cap in orientation as well. They will usually fall much lower than the broad based index. Okay, so if you can see the volatility I was showing you here in 2020, when the markets fell 28%, dividend yield stocks had just fallen 23%. And the beauty of it is they recovered much quicker than the broad based index in that sense. So even though your Nifty was at minus 12, the dividend yield stocks became positive one very quickly. So you will see not much growth here, but you will see a lot of stability in your portfolio when it comes to dividend stocks, because of their inherent nature. Because they are companies who have, who have profits, who have stable demand in that sense, which doesn't get influenced as much by the market sentiment as the broad-based index would. So moving on, how do you spot dividend stocks? So dividend stocks are basically, the way you would spot is stable industries, as I mentioned, industries which we are very sure of demand. So, as a FMCG is, right, or a PSU is, because of the inherent nature of it being widespread compared to private banks, etc. So these kind of things, where we know that there is going to be stable demand for these products, they are not cyclical in nature. It's going to have a demand, whatever happens, recession happens, anything happens, you have to kind of buy these essential products, right? Telecom, so anything which is essential, which is stable, is usually a tick mark for dividend paying kind of companies. Stable cash flows, this is also very important, because only if it has stable cash flows, it will be able to generate free cash flow to kind of generate profits and then pay out to its investors. So it has to have stable cash flows, and the cash flows cannot be very volatile for a dividend paying company. simple products, daily use, which I already mentioned, steel, household commodities, power, buildings are going to be made, roads are going to be made, infrastructure is going to be something that the country will need. So steel is something that is a very very consumable product. Similarly, power infrastructure or any household commodities in terms of your daily use commodities, toothbrush, paste, anything like that. So all that will be required, come what may in the economy. You will delay your luxury spends, you will delay spends which are not important, right, when the economy is going through some recession or is going through a very a bear market. But dividend companies will be companies which you need to kind of use these products daily. Government holding, a very important one. Someone even asked why are a lot of dividend yield companies government holding is very high. So as the deficit in India, right, is high, and it will always be. Compared to our income, the government's income, right, the expenses are far higher. That's called the current account or deficit, right? So how will government, if whenever it needs more money, right, more income flowing in to expense, so these companies where the government holds a large portion, right, usually are companies which have to kind of pay dividends, because this dividends will go to the government's account, and from there the expenditures will happen more and more. So because we have a deficit anyway, and we are going to have a deficit for years to come, that's why the government holding companies, especially, will pay out dividends as a means to, because government holding is also a shareholding, right? The government is a shareholder in these companies. So when dividends are declared, this money goes to the government and then they use it for expenditure. Of course, the country's expenditure. And that's why when someone asked, right, why PSU companies declare a lot of dividends to help, of course, manage our deficit also. And that's why a lot of PSU companies usually declare dividend, and you can see it in my slides earlier as well.
Ma'am,
Any
I
more
have,
questions?
I yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
I like
We
to
are
do that.
getting a couple of questions, but I think I would like to start with my own question first. Of course, I'm so sorry for all of you watching. I'll be a little biased. I have the opportunity to ask the expert directly. So, ma'am, my question is, जितना मैंने डिविडेंड को अभी तक समझा है, फॉर मी डिविडेंड लुक्स लाइक अ ड्रॉप इन द ओशन. दैट इज लाइक इफ आई हैव अ ह्यूज पोर्टफोलियो,
Hmm.
dividend can be, or huge, I mean whatever the portfolio is, dividend can only contribute to a very minute significant, minute chunk of it. Is that so? Or is it also possible to drive huge huge value of your portfolios? I mean, yeah, only dividends can drive your portfolios also. Is that also possible in an
Um,
ideal portfolio?
So in an ideal portfolio, right, of course, asset allocation is important, but because this is more to do with dividends, of course, there are some companies who have been able to consistently pay dividend and go ahead and do capital appreciation also, and some very good companies, right? One is a trading kind of a mindset. A lot of people, what they do is jump into dividend stocks when the dividend is declared, right? Because they get time till the X record date or to kind of jump into the stock. So a lot of people, what they do is get into the stock only when dividend is declared, and get out of the stock once the record date is, once the dividend is paid out. So that is a very trading kind of a system, right? But as an investor, if you get in the stock once the dividend is paid out and the stock price is does go down because of that adjustment, and if you get into that, that's a good time for an investor to kind of average into this stock, right? Because you're getting it at a cheaper price in that sense, from a capital appreciation perspective. So in terms of whether a dividend portfolio is only good enough to create capital appreciation, yes, we have seen that in the past where there are dividends being paid out plus capital appreciation has been good in companies. But of course that also depends on the portfolio that you are eventually making, right? Because if you are just invested in a sale, for example, it has consistently paid dividends, it is consistently appreciated, but only 8% of appreciation. So if you go to see, that's not the best way to kind of compound wealth, right? Because you kept taking out 3% of that. So in terms of wealth creation, it may not be the best thing to be invested in only.
But given the average returns that we see, or given the rate of dividend that we see, uh, is it okay to look at it as a replacement for people who go for FDs? At least, क्योंकि वहाँ पे
Absolutely,
जो return.
absolutely. Absolutely, because this is investing in consistent companies. You may just have to give it time, but yes, you're getting your quarterly payouts and there is decent capital appreciation. It is way better than, being invested in an FD. Uh, but of course, there will be some volatility, right, when there are market drawdowns, etc. So, in that sense, yes, but it is a great a tool for people looking at consistency more than anything. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I think we can move ahead. As and when I get more questions, I'll come back to you again.
Okay, so there were questions, right?
Yes, yes, we have. Do you want us to take it now? I mean, or
Yes, I think we should
should we
take
take it?
questions now. Yes, and then I'll
Okay.
move to the other side. Yeah.
Yes. Now this question has come to us on Instagram. This is already my favorite question. Uh, I don't know where this is coming from, but it's a very direct question. Seems like the user ये शायद अभी कोई ना कोई न्यूज़ चैनल देख के आ रहा है. But his question is कि isn't dividend income for faint-hearted people who don't have the guts to trade in the market?
Again, see, trading is very different than looking at income, right? Because trading is literally for the faint, not for the faint-hearted for sure. And this is more of an investing strategy. As I said, one should not look at like a trading strategy, right? Okay, you just invest in the company right before the dividend is, before the X record date, and then get out when the dividend is given to you, because that is like literally trading for dividends. And that should not be the strategy applied, because there is also a factor of capital appreciation. And dividend investing has to be looked at more passive income than looked at, it's not a replacement to trading at all, and it's something which is better actually than doing trading, because here you're consistently getting that kind of a yield, right, which is a good yield to kind of get from a quarterly perspective.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Also, I'll touch base on volatility, right? Like in terms of trading, right, as someone mentioned regarding trading versus dividend yield. Of course, if you're in a portfolio, there will be drawdowns, right? And trading calls you are usually taking for a very short period. But because the dividend portfolios are meant to kind of hold on, right, these are quarterly payments, these are not going to come to you like every month, etc. So since they are quarterly payments and they are structured in that fashion, even in bad times, right, there have been companies who have declared dividends nevertheless. So you may see a capital appreciation not happening, wherein you can hold the stock to kind of get your appreciation in once the market turns around. But at least your dividends will be consistent, and you will not be not getting dividends, because that is something which is paid out quarterly by stable companies, even in good bad markets, if we see across over 5 years and 7-10 years. So that is something which is very important to consider. Now, in terms of a pack that we run on Pickright itself, which is called the Dividend Stocks. So if it's a hassle picking dividend stocks on your own, you can of course subscribe to these packs, which are meant for dividend investing. And the portfolio is made in a format which helps uh, create dividend income from a passive perspective. Um, I'll go to this slide to mention a little bit on the in terms of how do you select if you have to make really a 1 lakh portfolio, for example, right? What are the factors that you look at in terms of portfolio building? So I can so let's say if you had invested about 1 lakh in dividend stocks, okay, and the average dividend yield of the portfolio is about 7 to 8%. Okay, dividend yields. So on a 1 lakh, you would have ended up making about 8-9 thousand only in dividends. Okay, through the year. And if you hold it for over a period of 4-5 years, you would end up making. So if you had really if you want to end up making 1 lakh, ideally if you're looking at 8-9% dividend yield, usually the investment amount would be a good 10 lakhs, and that's how you would be able to achieve it over time. Okay, Himanshu, any further questions? It'll be nice if I can answer questions now, because that will really get the pulse of the audience, and we get to know what exactly is the audience. It'll make it interactive.
Yes, ma'am, definitely. Let's take a couple of more questions. But before that, for everybody who has been patiently with us, there's a small clip that we want to show you. Uh, and there's an initiative which we have taken as Pickright, and we are so happy to have Sneha ma'am on board helping us with that initiative. So Pickright and CNBC, we have recently launched this campaign called Shiksha se Samriddhi, where we believe that it is very important for all of us to have the right knowledge and right information before making the investment decisions. आई मीन कुछ टाइम पहले तक मेरे इन्वेस्टमेंट ऐसी होती थी कि मेरे ग्रुप में एक दोस्त है जो स्टॉक मार्केट में पैसा डाल रहा था, वो कमाता था, हम उससे पूछ लेते थे भाई क्या करें, और हमने डाल दिया। जब उसको नुकसान हुआ तो हमको भी हुआ, लेकिन अब हमको ज्यादा होगा। उसने तो बैलेंस कर रखा था, हमारा नहीं था। तो आई एम प्रीटी श्योर आप सबके साथ भी ऐसा हो ही रहा होगा। तो ऐसे में ये बहुत जरूरी है कि हम एक राइट इन्फॉर्मेशन के साथ, सही सोर्स के साथ ही इन्वेस्ट करें। So there's a small clip that I want to play for all of you. Let's watch it and then we'll again come back and resume this webinar thing. Just a 1 minute clip, but I'm pretty sure it will, you'll all like it.
Shiksha se Samriddhi, an investor education initiative, knowledge partner Pickright.
शेयर बाजार में लालच से नहीं, नॉलेज से बनता है पैसा। यहाँ तुक्का नहीं लगाना चाहिए।
सच कहा आपने, ज्यादातर लोग बिना कोई प्रेपरेशन ही मार्केट में कूद जाते हैं,
जबकि बचपन से ही हमको सिखाया जाता है कि पहले थियरी पे ध्यान दें और फिर प्रैक्टिकल करें।
यतिन, एक चीज आपने नोटिस की होगी कि कुछ लोग निवेश करते हैं और स्टॉप लॉस भी नहीं लगाते हैं।
वही तो, लोग स्टॉप लॉस भी नहीं लगाते हैं और लॉस के सौदे में कई बार उसको एवरेज भी कर लेते हैं।
हर सौदे में स्टॉप लॉस जरूर लगाए।
एक और चीज जहाँ लोग ध्यान नहीं देते हैं कि मुनाफे वाले सौदे में ज्यादा समय नहीं देते।
बिल्कुल, वरना लोग एक दिन के ही सर्किट में स्टॉक बेचकर निकल जाते हैं।
इसीलिए तो दिग्गज निवेशक शेयर बाजार में लोगों को यही कहते हैं कि यहाँ पेशेंस रखना बहुत जरूरी है।
So with that, पेशेंस रखना बहुत जरूरी है, एंड थैंक यू सो मच, आप लोगों ने 1 मिनट का और पेशेंस रखा। मैम, आई थिंक विल टेक द क्वेश्चंस दैट वी आर गेटिंग। सबसे पहला ये कुछ देर पहले क्वेश्चन आया था, ये क्वेश्चन है मिलिंद का। ही सेइंग कि मेरा पोर्टफोलियो, मेरे पास इन्वेस्टमेंट अमाउंट लिमिटेड है, लिमिटेड अमाउंट में क्या डिविडेंड, इज इट पॉसिबल टू मेक डिविडेंड्स? Okay, he hasn't mentioned कि उनका limited number क्या है, but I think I'll try to rephrase this question, ma'am. Is there a minimum amount that I should allocate in order to earn a significant dividend income?
So as
What
I
is a
said,
good number
right?
that you think? Yeah.
So as I said, yield is about 8-9%. So one should look at it like that, right? अगर आपको रियली 1 लाख चाहिए तो आपको ऑफकोर्स सिग्निफिकेंट अमाउंट लगाना पड़ेगा. बट आपको रियली 1 लाख चाहिए या यू वांट समथिंग लाइक 3,000 5,000 a month, right? And then you will have to put in the amount accordingly. But that is just because it's a dividend yield portfolio, right? You're not looking at capital appreciation either. So आप ये पैसिव इनकम देख रहे हो पार्टली, प्लस ऑफ कोर्स इसमें आपका ग्रोथ भी होएगा, राइट? तो 1 लाख आपका हो जाएगा 120 ओवर in probably 2 years, and after third year वो हो जाएगा 150. So depending on what the growth is in the market also, वो grow भी होएगा. So that is also something that is growing as well, right? So इसी में कोई minimum amount नहीं होता है trading में या investing में. So as long as you're able to put in the amount that is required to just buy the stocks, you should be able to see consistent returns from an yield perspective. Or yield तो easily, if you're doing 4-5 stocks, right, तो वो portfolio yield रहेगी. And the portfolio yield will usually be in that range what I just mentioned, and that should be helpful to create that amount for you. So ये monthly amount पे depend होता है कि आपको कितना monthly amount चाहिए, और वो basis पे आपका capital होना चाहिए.
Okay, this another question. Okay, I'm assuming this person is somebody शायद उन्होंने recently invest करना शुरू किया है या फिर अभी तक किया नहीं है. The question is, ma'am, कि what is the frequency of dividends? If I have invested in a dividend stock, do I get money every month or is it quarterly? Okay, so the question is based on frequency of returns.
So usually these are quarterly returns. The dividends are declared quarterly. But क्या होता है, right? If you are taking 4-stock portfolio, हर आपने जब भी इन्वेस्ट किया है, राइट, और आपको कब मिलने वाला है वो हर क्वार्टर मिलेगा, राइट? बट समझो आपने इन्वेस्ट ही फेब में किया है और मार्च के क्वार्टर में अगर डिविडेंड मिलना है तो आपको तो 1 महीने में ही मिल गया ना डिविडेंड. सो it will depend on stocks to declare dividends quarterly, but your investment is depending on the month that you invested. So it could be monthly for you, because जब भी stock declare करेगा dividend, और अगर आप एक शेयर होल्डर हो तो वो डिविडेंड आपके बैंक में क्रेडिट हो जाएगा. वो आपके स्टॉक डीमैट में नहीं दिखता है. डिविडेंड इज क्रेडिटेड टू द बैंक अकाउंट. सो इट विल बी क्रेडिटेड टू योर रिलेटेड बैंक अकाउंट, जहाँ पे अपने स्टॉक जो भी बैंक से आपने मैंडेट से खरीदा है.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Milind, I think इससे पहले आपका क्वेश्चन आंसर हो गया था कि he's asking कि 1 लाख के लिए 8% के हिसाब से क्या मुझे 10 से 11 लाख का पोर्टफोलियो रखना पड़ेगा? I think it's, as ma'am said, it's not just about the dividend income. Of course, आपका जो principal amount जो आपने invest किया था, that itself will grow. So of course, it is it's good to have a higher amount, but yes, 8 to 9% is the average that we should think on. Okay, this is a personal question, I guess. Archana Jha, she's asking, I'm currently 38. Should I invest in dividend companies or growth companies? Please advise. How would you take it? I'm not sure what to make out of the age. Does it mean कि मैं कुछ time play invest करना चाह रही हूँ, या फिर I've got some 38 की age में, I'm assuming you have some bigger expenses coming up, maybe your kid's marriage or नहीं, sorry, marriage तो नहीं, शायद college that college expense या कुछ.
No, so for anybody who is, it's not age linked, to be very honest. It's more linked to आपके लिए income जरूरी है as of now. So dividend is meant for people, right? आप क्या कर रहे हो इसमें dividend investing में? आप what are you trying to do, right? From an investor perspective, इसमें आप कर रहे हो कि आप इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो डिविडेंड में टू गेट कैश फ्लो बैक. तो अगर आपका नीड है कि आपको कैश फ्लो चाहिए, राइट, बिकॉज इफ यू नीड कैश फ्लो देन यू हैव टू डू डिविडेंड, बिकॉज वो आपको ग्रोथ स्टॉक में मिलेगा ही नहीं. यू विल हैव टू वेट, राइट, इन अ ग्रोथ स्टॉक फॉर 2-3 years. So ideally dividend is it's not age based, it's more based on आपको इनकम चाहिए क्या. So अगर आपको इनकम चाहिए तो ऑफकोर्स आपको डिविडेंड करना है, और अगर आपको इनकम नहीं चाहिए एज ऑफ नाउ, योर एक्सपेंसेस कैन बी टेकन केयर ऑफ फ्रॉम अदर सोर्सेज, तो फिर आपको डिविडेंड करने की कोई जरूरत ही नहीं है, बिकॉज डिविडेंड में आपको इनकम आते रहेगी और आपको इनकम तो चाहिए ही नहीं. तो आप बेटर ऑफ रहोगे ग्रोथ स्टॉक्स में, बिकॉज उधर आपका अप्रिसिएशन बेटर रहेगा ना.
Okay, I hope Archana this answers your question. The next question is, what is interim dividend? I have heard some companies give dividend even before they were before their allocated dates. Can you tell me if there are any such companies that we can look at?
Sorry, your voice cracked up in the middle, so I couldn't.
Oh. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay. The question is, it's a direct question. What are interim dividends? मैंने ऐसा सुना है कि कुछ companies पहले ही dividend दे देती हैं before their dates.
Before their
Dividend date, before the date they have announced interim dividends.
So interim dividends are usually declared by the board of directors. Okay. So I'll tell you how it works. So they are usually declared by the board of directors, whereas final dividends are declared by shareholders. So it's paid according to that.
Okay, ma'am.
Also,
Okay, that's fine.
just one second. So, someone had that query on specifically on the how much to invest to get this, right? So I have
Yes.
a slide to explain that. I like to take that up for a second. One second. I'll just share that. So, someone said, how much do you need to invest to make 1 lakh in dividends, right? So, this is just an example of the amount of shares that you need to buy. So, let's say, Coal India, for example, it's a PSU again. The price of the share is about 281, okay? And the yield that they give is about 9%. As I said, dividend yields are usually 8-9% for a decent company. So, currently, the shares that you need to buy will be about 4,400 to get to a dividend of 1,11,000. So, you will need to buy 4,400 shares of Coal India if you want to really get a dividend of 1,11,000. So that's the kind of this that investment is that you need to do to get to this kind of a dividend annually, because there will also be a TDS on the dividend, and then your total capital required would be about 12,36,000. That's what we are trying to say. That someone asked, right? How much will you need to get 1 lakh of dividend? So you need to invest about 10-12 lakhs to get that, because the yield is about 9%, 8-9% in a dividend yield fund. In a dividend yield.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have got two more questions, very specific questions. Bharat Kumar is asking, is investing in companies like Vedanta good to get dividend as it has pledged 100% of its share?
The Vedanta story is a little, it is. So I'll explain you on Vedanta. Okay, just. So in Vedanta, the promoter holdings are usually are very high. If I understand correctly, in Vedanta, the promoter holdings are very high. So now, if they are giving dividends, okay, so what is it? Most of the dividends, when the promoter holdings are high, right? Usually, of course, the dividends are being paid out to the promoters as well. So the promoters are actually taking money from the aspect of dividends, right? So of course, if a promoter holding is high and if the company is giving dividends, it's a good for the company, right? Because that's why they're distributing that the dividends, the profits of the company. So it's actually a positive for the company versus a bad, I would say. Yes, but Vedanta is loss making. Uh, in that sense, if you just want to ask me that question.
Okay. So Parag is asking, when should we invest in dividend yield stock? Okay, when we have already invested in dividend yield stock, should we have to exit if dividend paying company's price is not appreciating? What is the time horizon to check it?
Sorry, can you repeat?
When we invest in a dividend yield stock, should we exit if the company's stock price is not appreciating?
No, of course, there's no need to exit, right? Because see, at the end, you've invested in a dividend company, like example, like Coal India or SAIL, right? We saw that the appreciation is much lower, but the dividends are coming, no? So see, the intent has to be very clear. You invested in a dividend company for the dividends more, not for the capital appreciation, because you are not looking at a growth company. You're looking at a stable company. So as long as even a Coal India, for example, if you see the share price from its highs of 300, it has not even reached there again. Back in 2017, it was at about 300. Today, the stock price is not even that yet. So, but it has consistently given dividends. So it's a good company from a dividend perspective, right? So when you're evaluating companies, I don't think capital appreciation is the main, because it gets reset, when the company is giving dividends out, or the share price will also reset accordingly. So definitely that. It's One should look at consistent dividend rather than looking at capital appreciation in a dividend company. Even on Vedanta, someone is Vedanta a good stock or not? I would say Vedanta is loss making, and yet they are paying out such high dividends. So rather go for something which is more stable than going for something which is not stable, because there you may have that issue of dividends being not given in the future, and you are looking at a consistent dividend paying stock, not inconsistent, right? Or someone who can stop it, because if they have losses eventually, they may stop those dividends. So go for a more stable company. Yeah.
Parag, I hope this answers your question. We've got one more question coming up. The question is there any specific strategy on reinvesting dividends?
I would say, then you would have rather gone to a growth company who wouldn't give you dividends, right? I mean, see, the idea of dividend is very, very clear. It is for income, isn't it? If you want to reinvest, of course, you can buy more shares of the same company if you want at all, or you may buy something which is then growth linked, right? Because reinvesting the dividend in the hands, honestly, now with the dividend taxation, if you are in a higher tax bracket, see, imagine it like that, right? You will get the dividends, you will pay tax on it, and you'll reinvest it. So only if you used it, I think it's a good strategy, because dividend reinvestment in that sense, you better then be in a growth company. No, why are you affecting that tax at all if you're in a higher bracket altogether? Because dividend is taxed as the income. It's income for you as per your tax slab. So okay, if you're not in the tax slab at all, then okay, it was okay to do that dividend reinvesting, because you had the choice, right, to spend or to reinvest it. That choice
Yes.
remains is yours, right? But if you're in a tax bracket which is higher, again, that it wouldn't add up.
Mhm. We've got one last question coming up. The question is, if a company has announced a cut on its dividend, अगर उन्होंने
Hmm.
अपना dividend amount कम कर दिया है, is this a negative sign? Should I move to another company or should I wait? How do I evaluate this? Okay. How do I
Uh,
evaluate a dividend cut?
so I would say dividends, of course, have to be consistent, but 1 quarter of cut cannot decide whether the company is good or not, right? It could have, of course, some volatility in terms of cash flows or something, right? If they've declared a lesser dividend. So, of course, you have to assess the industry or assess the stock, and, from a macro perspective also. You can't just take a call on 1 2 quarters. It has to be maybe, a little longish approach, or then, of course, it is whether the sector or the stock that we are talking about has had some major changes, and that's why it has gone into, it is not paying out the dividends, or there has been some very macro effect which is, from a sector perspective, these stocks are not doing well in general, and that's why there is a cut in dividends. So I think the approach has to be more holistic than, okay, they didn't give dividend this quarter, so I will get out. It cannot be a very isolated approach.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we've got one more question coming up. I thought that was
Amazing.
last, but they keep on coming. Ye question, I think, okay, this is somebody who knows Pickright and the portfolio also. So the question
Okay.
is, ma'am, currently dividend investing का minimum amount 17,000 दिखा रहा है. I have about 9,000. If I exactly do half of it, is it a good step, or should I wait once I have 17,000 and then get into this portfolio? Okay,
You
so the
mean yeah, you mean our pack, the
yeah,
Pickright
our
pack?
Pickright Dividend Investing Pack has
Yeah, so
uh,
that means you can't do, no, because as I said, these are large cap stocks, right? Usually large cap in nature. And so what will happen is, when a minimum investment is because of the stocks and their weightages percentage wise, right? So then you will
hmm,
not be able to completely invest only, as per the ratio. I think you have
okay.
to adhere to the minimum investing.
So for maximum benefits and to get exactly what the pack is supposed to do, you should meet
Exactly.
that
You should meet
min
that.
minimum
Yes.
number. Okay.
Minimum.
And okay, there's another question. How often do you rebalance your portfolio? Do you even rebalance it? Okay, I think of course I'll take the answer. Of course we do. But ma'am, I'll come to you. How often do we do that?
So we have a system of at least monthly rebalancing. But as I said, right now, if it is a stock where we have dividend, especially, right, there is no need to rebalance very often. But of course, wherever we see, like I just explained, right, if some company has stock dividends, and the intent of this portfolio is dividend. So if we see a sector or a macro level change, or amendment, then of course we are going to balance. So rebalancing is an effect of how the market has played out, and there's so many factors to rebalancing than you know uh, just rebalancing because it's due in 1 month. Rebalancing cannot be looked at like that. So if we will rebalance monthly if need be, otherwise not.
Yeah.
But we do rebalance. So someone is checking for you. That's the main point, I think, of the agenda.
Yes.
Yes,
I can vouch for it along with ma'am. Yes. We do rebalance it. We are always keeping an eye on it. And
exactly.
and not only that, on top of it, as कुछ देर पहले we saw in that CNBC video कि बिना information के हम क्यों invest करें? So first you come to our website, get to know about us, look for dividend investment pack, understand what is going on. आप देखिए उसके पिछले दो साल का 3 साल का CAGR क्या रहा है, क्या returns रहे हैं. Then you take a call. See, and I'm pretty sure once you do this analytical assessment, there's a high chance you'll end up investing with us.
Absolutely. I agree with Himanshu. So this is the pack, and yes, it has done really well. If you even go to see the market versus the pack itself, it has been beating it consistently.
So, with this, I think, ma'am, we have come to an end for the session. It was a
Thank you so
very informative session. Uh, Thank you so much for this. And to everybody who is watching, ma'am, is there anything that you would want to share with the people? Any last minute comments or thoughts to it?
Definitely. I do think that, of course, understanding what you kind of do in the market is important. And that's why these sessions are very, very important to kind of educate, empower, enlighten. But when it comes to investing, don't be isolated. Don't, come to the right experts. go to the right platforms. I mean, Pickright has built a beautiful platform here, as we can see, and it's the minimum investments are fairly low. Of course, it is meant for efficiency in your portfolio. So if it is given guidance as per that, it's to make the most of it and not a deterrent in that sense. So yes, if you haven't started your investing journey, I think it's a great way to start your investing journey as well, because dividend will give you less volatility. So dividend may be a great way to start off, because you will not see so much volatility in your portfolio, and you may be feeling comfortable to kind of take equity market risk. So yes, I'm hoping you start your investing journey very soon, because India is a great market. The equity market is at a great place today, and Indian market is looking so good in terms of where we are and how the demographics are placed. So yes, go ahead and invest.
So go ahead and invest, but invest wisely with all the information.
Invest very wisely.
Yeah. See, all of us are vouching for that. That if you invest wisely, of course, uh, we'll have better portfolios, and of course, हम सब खुश रहेंगे. हम सबकी खुशी इसी में है. So, and yes, if thank you so much all of you for watching. And as you saw that CNBC clip, okay, I'm going to announce this live and this is only for the people live who are watching. Okay, Mukesh says thank you, great session. Archana, great session. Oh, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. You loved it. Now, there's one more thing I'm announcing. What I need you to do is, so you will catch CNBC and Pickright's videos, Shiksha se Samriddhi live on CNBC channel. Monday say you will be seeing them more often. So next time, whenever you see it, click a picture of it, send it to us on Instagram, and we got a very special gift waiting for you. So do that, and it's very simple. Search for Pickright on Instagram, take a picture of it, send it to us, and then next thing we'll give you a call. You tell us your address, and the gift reaches you. So thank you so much everyone for joining. Sneha ma'am, thank you so much for taking the time. Saturday को आपने time दिया, and of course सब लोग भी आ गए Saturday को. So all in all, a great session.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone.